The first two speakers went over 9 minutes. And yay, because that's been on me all week. Just a few months ago, I was saddened by social media comments by a very prominent Christian leader in this city. He put online, "Why don't all those Muslims just go home to the countries where they came from?" Now, I've known this guy for a minute or two, so I got a hold of him and I said, "Hey, I don't think that's who you really are. You don't really mean that, do you?" And his response was to double down again online and say there are good Arabs in this country and they hate Muslims, as if to justify his own hate, as if to justify his own hatred. As one half of this broadcast that I do called A Christian and a Muslim Walk into a Studio, I was a little bit angry, but I wasn't surprised. That's just kind of how things are. When I was 10 years old, I learned a scripture verse. It was the first verse I ever memorized. It was John 3:16. Anybody know that one? It's a good one. It says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever would believe in him would not perish, but have everlasting life." Here's the thing. I had a Sunday school teacher when I was 10. It was an 82-year-old man named Carlos Page who really impacted me. I mean, I'm 60 years old, and I still remember that man's name. That's a pretty big deal to have an impact on a young man that way. He thought it was important for us to learn the next verse as well. He told us this verse is just as key. So John 3:17 says, "For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved." And listen to me, that's a good one too. There's two things here. God so loved the world. Now that means the whole world, not just people who look like us, not just people who act like us, not just people who talk like us, and not just people who believe like us. That's the whole world. The second thing is, he did not come to condemn. He came to save. And again, that's referring to the whole world, guys. The whole world. Not just those who are like us. And that's the whole world from the beginning of creation to today. One of my favorite verses is 1 John 4:7 and 8. It says, "Beloved, let us love one another. For love is of God, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. He that does not love does not know God, because God is love." A few years ago, I did an on-camera interview with this man. His name was Ahmad Mirza. His name is Ahmad Mirza. He just so happened to be the only practicing Amir in the entire United States. That means he was the legal and spiritual head of Kern County's 5,000 Muslims. And trust me when I tell you, he looked the part. He was large, intimidating, bearded, and way smarter than just about anyone I had ever met. We had a contentious interview, very contentious. And afterwards, we were in the green room, and I said something that made him laugh. And as soon as he started to laugh, I moved in. And I said, "You ought to let me buy you breakfast." And immediately he stopped laughing and he got very serious and he said, "Why in the world would I want to do that?" It was a contentious interview, I promise you. We talked about hard things, but I didn't stop smiling. I looked him right in the eyes and I said, "Because you should." And he just said, "All right, here's my phone number. Go ahead and text me. We'll get breakfast." So now we know that Muslims are like us. They text. They eat breakfast. Look at this. All these things we have in common. Listen, this is how things work. We have to engage people to get to know them. And we have to step through our fear, even if we come by that fear honestly. Does that make sense? There's this reality in life that I like to call the lenses of experience, and it colors a lot of what we do. Everything that has happened to us colors our perception. Even the words that you're hearing me speak right now are coming through those filters. Everything that's happened to you, these words are being filtered through. Now, sometimes that's a good thing. Like you touch a hot stove when you're a little kid, and whoa, and so you know not to touch that hot stove again. But a lot of times, I'm telling you, these lenses do not do us any favors. And in the arrogance of that experience, sometimes we think we even know how stories end. Tell me if you've heard this before. Well, here we go again. Well, I've been down this road before. We think we know how stories end. Now, there was someone in the Bible who I think had the ability to remove those lenses and put on fresh lenses from heaven literally every day, and that's King David. When you read some of the Psalms, he talks about the majesty of the mountains or the roar of the ocean like he's seeing it for the first time. But newsflash, guys, that's where he grew up. He had the ability to see things over and over and over again for the first time. And I promise you, this is really part of what Jesus meant when he said it's important for us to become like children. So a few weeks later, I find myself at a restaurant with my new friend Ahmad. And he wanted to immediately talk about religion. So I engaged him for a few minutes that way, but really that's a zero-sum game. I knew that I wasn't about to convince him. He's very well-versed, and he wasn't going to convince me. So I looked at him. I like that you talked about stories, because here's what I said. Tell me your story, start at the beginning, and don't leave anything out. And he laughed. He looked at me. I wasn't laughing. So for the next 3.5 hours, he told me his story. I found out that he moved here to Bakersfield when he was 5 years old from Kuwait. I found out that his father was a very important man in Kuwait, in the government. He worked in the Ministry of Trade. His father's life was once literally saved by Muhammad Ali. It's a real deal story. He told me all about his family, told me what it was like growing up as a Muslim in Kern County, that he went to high school, that he played football in high school, that he went to USC and graduated as a Trojan, that he was a big Dallas Cowboy fan, and he had once gone to Cowboy Stadium to watch a game and rode an elevator up to a luxury box with the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Now that's they're just like us. They're just like us. And then he tells me this. He said, Bob, I recently sat with a PhD in religious studies, and yet this conversation is far more fascinating. Of course it was. He was getting to tell his stories. Everybody wants to be known. That's a universal. That's a universal. I don't care if it's Australia or Alaska. Everybody wants to be known. And I was giving him a chance to be known by me. And he was taking full advantage. And then he looked at me and he said something odd. He said, hey, could we maybe do this again next week? And I said, sure. And a few minutes later he said, could we maybe just make this a regular Thursday? Now, do you see how this is working? We begin to speak this language. It's a different language. I like to call it the language of agreement. We don't necessarily agree on everything, but we are agreeable with love and respect. And suddenly, why would I want to do that in the green room becomes, can we just make this a regular Thursday? As time went on, we found ourselves becoming dear friends. There were even times when I had specific dreams and what I like to call encounters from heaven. That happens to me once in a while. And it caused him to freak out a little bit because some of the stuff I was seeing was the real deal. And at first he admitted he wasn't sure how to process those things that I was dreaming and seeing. But after a period of time, I went to a symposium where he was teaching on jihad at Cal State Bakersfield, and 2/3 of the crowd was his community. And I'm sitting in the front row, and he stood me up. He said, before I start, I want to introduce you to my friend, Bob Prater. My friend, Bob Prater. Bob is a man who walks with and hears from God. That's one of the greatest compliments I have ever been paid in my life, and probably as honoring a thing as has ever been said to me. So after a year of hanging out, we thought people might be interested in our conversation, so we began broadcasting this thing called A Christian and a Muslim Walk Into a Studio. And we did. It started just over a year ago. Over time, we found our way a bit. We discussed things we both care about: culture, politics, sports. We still tackled tough issues: terrorism, the treatment of women, and everything else we could think of. But we did it from a place of love and respect. We don't agree on everything, but again, we speak the language of agreement. I'll let you in on a little secret. We honestly think we can change the world. We just do. And we want people to stop killing each other. We put a video online early, and within an hour it had 20,000 views. In the Middle East, people were hungry. There's nothing like this on the earth. We're speaking this brand new language. When you take a moment to understand one another and learn to speak that new language, it can change everything. And that Christian leader who wants all Muslims to move, I met with him. I'm not shy. I just met with him. And I said, "You are making my job harder." And he didn't agree. "Come on," he protested. "It's just social media. Who cares?" And I said, "There are people like me on this earth who love Muslims and other people who are not like us. And I have got to make my way through a minefield of your words that you have put out there before I can even begin to have dialogue." He didn't agree. He said, "Oh, well, but that's okay. I'm not going to stop." You know why? For God so loved the world. Thank you.